Welcome to the Ed3 Podcast. My name is Rick, and as always, I am here with my amazing co-host, Tish. Tish, I'm just going to get straight into this because we have got a full house. We've got three incredible women. I'm super excited. I know you're super excited. Do you want to just introduce our guests because we need to get started on this?
Yeah, so we have Jornea, Jess, and Ann, and if you have been in the EdTech space for any amount of time, especially if you're a veteran teacher, you probably already recognize the three of those names together with Flipgrid. And I don't know the last time they've all been together on a podcast, so they're going to tell us that. I'm going to intro them briefly, and then I'm going to let them say a little thing to you, and then we're going to get right into it. So we have Jornea Armont, an educator of 14 years. Some of her passions include belonging at scale, emotional labor, transitioning your identity to human-centered connectedness. Next, we have Jess Boyce, educator of 10 years. Her focuses and passions are caring deeply in EdTech, storytelling that sustains communities, and really focusing on what educators still need most from EdTech companies. And last, we have Ann Cosma, educator of 17 years. She focuses on the invisible systems that are holding community together, focusing on how educator programs help teachers to succeed. She balances heart and execution, and she really leads authentic community instead of community for just a performance. Welcome, ladies. We're so excited to have you. Jornea, I'm going to let you go first. What would you like the audience to know today?
Get ready, audience, because this episode will be filled with nothing but laughs and maybe a lot of tears. So
Yes.
we're here with love.
Jess, what would you like to say to the audience?
For sure. The last time we saw each other was just a month ago, and within 2 seconds we were laughing and crying because we were just so happy to be in each other's presence. So it's going to be a wild ride, but it's going to be good.
And I'm jumping in to say, I can't look at the two of them without just crying, being overcome with so much love, so much gratitude for the season shared working alongside each other. And shout out to another piece of our heart, Feli Garcia Lopez. Yes. I'm going to quote her at the top. Todo con amor. She taught us everything with love. And I know it's something that we all inherently believe also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rick, what would you like to get in first? What would you like to get into? I know my question, but I'm going to let you kind of go first.
You just want to throw me. She never does this at all, just so everybody's aware. She usually just allows me to sit here for 30 minutes and not say a single word. And now she's just throwing me straight into the deep end. You know what? So I'm probably the odd one out here, purely because I came into the education space a lot later, not until probably 2018. And 2019 was when I first saw like Flipgrid live. I can't speak all of a sudden. Unfortunately, I wasn't actually there in person, but one of the things that I'm kind of thinking is my first impression of Flipgrid when I saw that was it is a company that is putting the community first over anything. Doesn't matter about the product, doesn't matter about the actual company. The people, yourselves, always put that community first. And that was like a true inspiration to what I saw when I was working at Wakelet and what we wanted to try and grow in the education community. And really from my side, it just hats off to all three of you and everybody else that was involved at Flipgrid for what you created, because you really set the path of what I believe the education sector has become. You're a representation of that. That was really like my first memory of it. I know it's not really a question. It was just something that's like.
Well, I think you actually set
I'm just,
this up
you know what?
perfectly.
I'm just in awe with it all. I'm just like, the fact that this is happening.
Here's the thing. I know Rick is starstruck today.
Yeah.
Here's what I think it is.
I'm just being a fangirl right now.
I want to set this up because I really want anybody that's listening, if you have a new teacher or a teacher in training that is not aware of what real community is about, you're going to send them this episode. And we want to set this up a little bit because if you're looking at the screen and you were in EdTech for a long time, you see how the little red thread goes along. So Flipgrid was the gold standard. That's kind of what I say. Flipgrid was the gold standard for educator first EdTech, right? And then what was so great about Flipgrid is that you partnered with other companies. So like Wakelet, right? And so Rick was at Wakelet. I was a Flipgrid ambassador. We all started off as Flipgrid users in the classroom and ambassadors, and we believed in this tool so much for our teachers. And then we found each other, right, in the community that was built. And then through finding each other, we also found other companies and other people who were doing the same thing. And that's actually how I landed at Wakelet. It was because of Flipgrid. So a lot of people ask me, how did you get to where you are today? It was really just finding a community of educators who believed the same things, who were like-minded, who were passionate, and who wanted the best for their students. That's really how I got here. But these ties run really deep on this podcast. And to Anne's point, Felly, there are some incredible people that aren't here that I want to shout out. Felly, Joey, Adam, George, Andy. Who am I missing? There's the thing is,
Scott Titmus.
Yes, I was going to say
community team.
The whole team at Flipgrid. This is what was unique, and I want to say this, and I think anybody listening is going to know what I'm saying. It wasn't just that we were building relationships with the community leads. We, as educators and ambassadors, were actually building relationships with everybody on that team. It didn't matter what their job was. And in a little bit, we have a slideshow that we're going to share with you in the chat. It's not a lot because I couldn't find all my pictures, but it represents kind of this big community. But I want the people listening to understand that we didn't just like find each other on Twitter today and be like, hey, we should do this episode. No, these relationships run deep. The passions run deep. And there were so many people involved. So Rick shared his first memory of Flipgrid. I'm going to share my first memory when I knew it was something different. And then Jornea, you're going to go first, and we're going to do the same thing. Jornea, Jess, and Anne, we're going to have you share your first memory about when you knew Flipgrid was something special. So for me, I was just coming out of childhood cancer treatment with my son, Jace. I had been in EdTech. I had been consulting, but took a break for that moment. And then I came back into it, and I went to a training where the trainer, Catherine Lassiter, who worked at Region 10, said there's this fantastic tool called Flipgrid. And she said, I want you to go out in the hall and I want you to use this tool in your training. So I go out in the hall and I sit there and I'm recording the prompt she's telling me to record, but something clicked. And I went, this is the most powerful thing I've seen for my students. So I started posting and I started sharing about what I was doing on Twitter, right? I'm always going to call it Twitter. And then I got an email from Joey. And I was an instructional technology specialist. So I was vetting tools all the time and I was getting those sales emails over and over and over. And when Joey emailed me, it wasn't a sales pitch. When Joey emailed me, it wasn't a corporate email. It wasn't structured like that. It was like, hey, Tisha, I've been seeing what you've been doing on socials with your students. That's incredible. Would you like to be an ambassador? Would you like to join our community? And it was the energy that was put into that email. It wasn't long. It wasn't pressured. It was just like, we really see you as a human being, as a teacher, and we want you to be part of what we're building. And that is when I knew that there was something different, right? So Jornea, we want to hear from you. When did you know?
Oh my gosh. So the year started out for me in 2015, actually discovering Flipgrid and starting to use it to solve an issue that I had. So at the time, I was an instructional technology specialist for the Alabama State Department of Education. I had 12 different districts within my region that I was responsible for. So that meant hundreds of schools, tens of thousands of educators in one me. And so when I found this, so I was like, whoa, okay. So I can really disseminate like information, but I can also get information back from educators, because the magic is what happens in the classroom, right? And so I always love just being side by side with teachers in their classrooms. But I can't do that for everybody that I serve, right? So it started off serving a need that I had, but I also was sharing this tool with the educators that I was supporting so that they could transform their learning experiences. So same, just as you, Tisha, I received that email, from Joey, asking to join the student ambassador community. When I clicked inside the grid for the student ambassador community, I was just blown away, just clicking video after video and learning about these incredible educators that I did not know. Most of the educators in that grid, I had never had any other interaction with before that time frame. And there was one that I was really drawn to. It's a guy by the name of Callie Alford. And I was drawn to it because we had the exact same role, but in 2 different states. So I'm like, okay, this is someone that I need to connect with, learn from, grow with. So we connected at that moment in time. Callie actually asked me to present at a conference that he was running in Atlanta, Georgia. He's like, look, I can't pay you, whatever else, but we would love to have you. We're trying to blend Microsoft and Google tools. And at that time, I was a Google innovator. And something just said, just say yes. And I did. And I was like, I'll come out to Atlanta and support your event. Well, little did I know, Charlie Miller, Dr. Charlie Miller, the founder of
Wow.
Flipgrid, was actually the keynote speaker of that conference, which was called the Redefining Learning Conference, like the perfect name, right?
Yeah.
And Charlie and I connected in the library, and he's like, so are you presenting today? And I was like, yeah, like these are my sessions. Like Flipgrid's a part of the session. Little did I know he would actually show up in my session. And as he's watching me present, like he's texting him, like a little nervous. I'm like, what is he doing? And then here's another guy that kind of peeks in. This is Jim Leslie, who at the time was like, I'm trying to think, what was Jim's role? Jim had lots of roles throughout the time frame, but he made a lot of the bigger decisions for the company early on. And so anyway, that night we had a great dinner, lots of conversation. A few weeks later, he called and asked could I do a webinar for Flipgrid. So I flew up to Minneapolis, did that webinar for Flipgrid. And 2 weeks later, he called me back and he's like, we would love for you to join our team. Now, did I fill out an application? No. Did I have an interview process? No. But what did I do? I was being myself, following my passions, and just once again, like thinking about the possibilities that come with, I would say an educator who has the passion and the will to make a difference in their classroom, and then the tools readily available to meet their students' needs. So when you have those 2 things together, like beautiful things can happen.
Right.
So I tell this whole story to tell the educators who are listening out there, you come with something special, in your classrooms, in your schools, in your districts, but the world needs that too. So don't ever minimize yourself. Share those beautiful things that you do and you do well, and life will align itself to you.
Yes.
All right, I'll pass it on.
Oh, so good,
Love it.
Jornea. So good. That's such great advice. We're all nodding our heads because we know. Jess, we're ready for your story now.
We're also nodding our heads because in true Jornea fashion, it's like, here's this story, but here's what you learned from it, and here's some advice, and I'm going to pump you all up. And it just makes me like, of course it came with a moral. Also, I know that story. I know that you're at that conference and Charlie Walk is the keynote. Why did it give me goosebumps when you said, little did I know, Dr. Charlie Miller? And I'm like, I've heard that story, but it still was so exciting for me. I love these moments.
It's like you're in the right place at the right time. When you're in the right place at the right time, right things happen. And it really is, Jornea. Like, I think all of us have that common story where it was we were in that right place, but we were just showing up as ourselves. And I think that is really the key for all of those new teachers and even the veteran teachers listening today, right? Okay, Jess, I'm ready for this.
Right.
This is going to be good.
All right. So my random story, right, where how it all happens the way it's supposed to. So I actually started using Flipgrid in my classroom in 2017. I used it as a feedback tool for myself because I was doing a lot with personalized learning, flexible seating, and I wanted to hear what my students thought about it. And so I had just, someone along the line was like, hey, here's this tool. And I'm like, okay, let me use it just as this like small thing so that I can hear from my students and see what it is. And, as many people have, you have that moment of like, oh, this is going to change my classroom. This is a really impactful thing. I was teaching math. And so I was thinking about all these ways of like, for them to be able to articulate their mathematical thinking to me, this is going to be great. This is the end of the year when I'm thinking about this, and I'm already getting excited for the next year so that I can implement it as on the regular. And then I was at ISTE in San Antonio, 2017, and I was in this thing. I don't even remember, to be honest, what it was, but I know I was sitting next to John Bimmerly, who was a stranger to me at that point. And I was yapping away about how, this conference is going to be different because I'm really trying to separate myself a little bit from my coworkers, in the sense of sometimes you get stuck in that thing of you all go to the same sessions, you then go to dinner together, you then go back to your hotel, you debrief, you go to bed, that's it. And you don't meet other people, you don't learn other things. And so I was trying to I was in this different space of how can I introduce myself to more people and learn more, because we're better together, right? And we grow better.
Mm.
And so I always call John the connector. So he was like, I'm going to dinner with some MIEEs tonight. Do you want to come? Here's my number. Text me and we'll meet up and we'll go to dinner. So I was like, okay, this is great. So I did that. And then after dinner, we were walking along the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and he goes, hey, there's the Flipgrid team. Have you met them before? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, okay, I'll come introduce you. And so we went and we sat there and we shared margaritas, and it was Joey and Jim and Charlie and Jornea. And we sat there for hours just having conversation. And it was like, I was having like really deep conversations with
Mhm.
these people, right? First time meeting, and we just went in, and it was like sharing passions and the things that we want to see for the world. And I remember walking away from that being like, who are these people? And Rick, whenever you were talking about how you had this moment with Flipgrid team of noticing how we put community first and all of these things, something that we
Hmm.
always said was people first, product second.
Mm.
Always, always,
Yeah.
always. And that
Yeah.
translated to me a lot of how I ran my classroom, right? Is that they
Yes.
were
People.
people, and I needed them to have a safe space and to know that I cared about them. That was it. I straight up would say to my students, I don't care if you learn math. If you know that I love you, that's it. That's
Well,
all we need.
because belonging builds capacity. And I think
Exactly.
that's really what it was. Like, I think because I felt like I belonged, Jess, and you probably felt this
100%.
too. You were like,
100%.
oh, I belong in this group. These are my
Mhm.
people. They think
Mhm.
like I do. And they
Exactly.
actually care about me, right? Like that
Exactly. Like,
changes everything. Yeah.
right. It's that whole like, how sometimes, and I feel like we all have this, that when you say, how are you, to the person bagging your groceries, and then they just like tell you really how you are, because they, or how they are, and you're like, wow, that person just told me their whole life story in a 5-minute interaction. But
Yeah.
it's because there's something about when you are intentional and you look in someone's eyes and you ask them those
Hmm.
questions and you
You see
genuinely
them.
are asking. You're not just, it's not
Mhm.
transactional, right? And
Yeah.
so, and we all have that. Everyone on this call, on this meeting,
Mhm.
not meeting, oh my gosh, I'm so in corporate life. Everyone on
Like,
this
it's not a
Jess is in
meeting.
work
It's
mode.
it's not a webinar. It's just we're having a
Everyone at this
fireside
coffee hangout.
chat.
Can't turn it off sometimes. But we all have that. And so it translates in those moments, and we identify it in other people as well. And
Sure.
so that started this whole thing of like, because I felt like I belonged, but I also knew that this was a really powerful tool. I was being so noisy about it as well. And then that whole red thread, right, of how things like just
Yes.
great. I love looking back and how things blend together. So at Q in March 2018, I met this amazing human at a Flipgrid party named Ann Cosma.
And mhm.
And my first memory of her is us both going like this, and she was like, "My cheeks hurt from laughing," because we were just like having this amazing conversation and just like, "You are my person. Like, what's going on? This is so great." And then, all of the fast forwards and all of the things happen, and she and I ended up getting hired together and having the
Mhm.
same first day at Flipgrid and flying to Seattle and sharing a hotel room and like in our little twin beds, like, oh, our birthday, you know?
So I was in the audience when that happened. I remember that moment, and I've told Anne this story. I don't know that I've told many people this story, but I'm going to say it on this podcast now. So you and Anne were up on stage being introduced, right? Like it was your time. Jornea was up there as well. And I remember sitting in the audience, and I remember saying to myself, not to anybody else, but I want to do that. What they're about to do. And I was like watching you guys from the audience going, no, like I want to work with educators. I want to help them. I want to empower them. That's what I want to do. And I remember holding on to that. So what year was that? What year did you say again?
That was 2018.
Yeah. So that was 2018. And then in 2019, I actually came to Flipgrid Live, and I was the person at the door stamping. I had done this a couple of times with Adam. I was like sort of the bouncer, which is like hysterical because I'm like, everybody come in. But I remember thinking like, okay, this is going to be incredible. So I go to 2019, and actually Flipgrid Live rehearsal of 2019 is when I met the Wakelet team. And it was the exact same, like you start piecing some of those things together, but I declared that I was going to do it without even knowing, without even having an invite to ISTE, right? We go in the library every day of 2019 from January until Adam emailed me and said, do you want to come to ISTE? I would walk in and I would tell my teachers, I'm going to ISTE this year. I've never been to ISTE in my whole life, but I'm going. And they were like, how are you going to get there? Our district's not paying. And I was like, literally don't know, but I'll be there. And I would do it every day. And I know they thought I was probably on something. And I was on like manifesting like highway. And that is how I really ended up where I am now. So it's so interesting, Jess. I love what you said, because you said something about community being relational, not transactional. And when you, as instructional technology coaches, as teachers, even as curriculum directors and IT directors, a lot of the interactions between companies and your role is very transactional. It's that transactional dance. And I just remember thinking, who are these people? Right? Like, what are they? They care about me?
Exactly. So. And then like, I remember getting an email from Jornea that was like, can I come visit your classroom? And I was like, what? Yeah, well, you sure can.
You're right. And that leads us to Ann Cosma, who did visit my classroom. But Ann, we want you to tell us, when did you know? When did you know there was something different?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love reminiscing and hearing Jess and Jornea's stories, because there are so many overlapping moments that it's like kismet, right? And so Jess talked about community and the human connection. Mine was because community builds community. And at the time, Tosa Chat, I still say Twitter also, but hashtag Tosa Chat was a very real community in my life and the work that I was doing as a teacher on special assignment. And there was this dynamic, solid gold human named Carly Mora. And Carly used to always talk about this thing called Flipgrid. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Because at the time, Adobe Spark was the tool that I was doing nonstop. So that was my jam. And I was like, I'll get to this thing called Flipgrid. I'll get to it. And I have a memory of getting on Voxer and sending Carly Mora a Vox and saying, what is this Flipgrid thing that I've been ignoring? I know I need to figure it out. And she texted me back or messaged me back on Voxer and told me all about it. And of course, I became obsessed and infatuated with it. I became an ambassador, and I became that person who introduced myself, at ISTE and met the team in 2017. And then in January of 2018, I DM'd Charlie and said, hey, I'm one of your ambassadors. We met at ISTE last year. I'm going to be in Minneapolis. I'd love to come by HQ and say hello. So he said, come on by. Joey and Adam will welcome you. And in that visit, I told them what I was doing in California with this tool and how I was helping teachers and students. And my why in the classroom was authentic voice for an authentic audience, and how my young scholars could share their learning in all these creative ways. So the Flipgrid team gathered, as it does, to often take a big group selfie. And there was this quiet moment, and the entire team at the time, which was like 26, 27 people, we were standing in front of the big green neon sign at Flipgrid. And I said, well, thank you for coming, everybody. It's so awesome to have you in this space. I want to share one more way that I've been using Flipgrid. And I talked about a teacher I was helping at the time whose brother was stationed on the International Space Station. And I said, I'm going to be the first person to get Flipgrid used in space. And I think people thought I was out of my mind. And I was, because I was that excited about the tool. But springboard to that visit, I invited Joey and Adam to Q in spring of 2018, where I did this session where literally it was community-based, community sharing their voice so loudly that the fire marshal took the microphone out of my hand and kicked us out of the room. But it was that party, as Jess mentioned, I met Jess because we were Flipgrid ambassadors. But from Carly to connections to the team being real humans that you could DM the founder of the product, to reaching out to head of community, to being welcomed and embraced as an individual just into the fold. You show up as yourself, but it was this tool that this person I knew I could reach out to and say, what is this? I've been ignoring this, but I know I can't ignore it anymore. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. The rest is actually you did the Flipgrid road trip and you came. I think it was Jess and George, Adam. We're going to show a picture and Rick is probably going to share this in the show notes. But I have a photo of you all in what was my classroom. It was actually the storage school store, which is where I was conducting my class, and you guys were sitting there, and you got to meet my students, and I remember that being such a huge deal for a tool that my teachers were using, that my students were using. We were using it every day. They were used to the name. They were used to the app. They knew the assignments were going to be going through Flipgrid, and to have you there, like, and you said something, one of you said something, and it reminded me, I say every day, for me, every day, people, pedagogy, product. That is the order that I am always having a conversation with people. And I don't think that everybody operates in that order. But that is how I thought of it. And for you guys to come give a human experience to my students and my teachers, it was that human experience. You weren't just in it to get their teacher subscription, right? You were there for them. You were there to empower them. You were there to talk to the kids. You were there to really cheer them on. And it just, those things went so far. What it did is it created not just this emotion, but now we have all these memories, and those memories with the emotion create this incredible connection globally, right? I chose the global t-shirt because the global community for both Flipgrid and Wakelet and all of these EdTech tools is my absolute favorite part of this, is being able, like you said, Jornea, like there's somebody in another state doing my job, and I would be like, oh my gosh, there's somebody from India that wants to connect with me and talk to me about what they're doing in their classroom. It was fascinating to me. Okay, Rick, what questions do you have now?
Listen, I'm just sitting here in awe listening to these stories because they're all brand new to me. So I'm just loving every single unique perspectives of how you've come together in this. And one thing I just want to point out, and I'm going to embarrass Tish with this, the fact that Tish knows where I'm going with this. The fact that you were like, kind of ignoring Flipgrid at the very beginning, like, why is this thing that we should be worrying about? And that is exactly what Tish was like with Wakelet. Like, you don't want to be using that. It's not the thing. And then lo and behold, both of you work at the companies that you kind of pushed aside temporarily, in a way.
But I think it's the veteran teacher in us that, because we were using so many tools, it was like, well, it's just, Leticia Citizen, I want to shout her out because she and I actually met at Flipgrid Live, and I can't remember which year it was. I want to say it was 2018, but we met each other wearing the exact same New Kids on the Block shirt because I think we were doing like retro night or something. Yeah, and so we always used to present together on Wakelet and Flipgrid and say, both of us had been doing this so long. We were like, we don't need another tool. Like, we're fine. We don't need to learn something new. But what really, like you said, Anne, it was the community. It was the people who were like, you know what? Let me show you the power. Let me get on a call with you. Let me do a Voxer. Let me text you. Let me do a screen recording. And it was that level of like just helping each other see the benefits. And I don't know that anybody else has done it quite like you all did it, which is what's fascinating. I want to read this though, Rick, because,
Okay.
you are obviously co-founder Wakelet product, like you've done all the things. I want to read Joey's LinkedIn post because I saw it a couple of months ago and it immediately resonated with me. And I shared it because I thought I need everybody to know this, but I want to read it in case you're listening and you're not on LinkedIn or you haven't seen it. So Joey Tarleson says, here's the thing nobody tells you about long-term product adoption. It's driven by people, not feature updates. Community is the multiplier. It creates super fans. It builds a moat. It deepens product usage. It gives you real signal. It expands your brand through stories you didn't have to write. When you put all of that together, you stop thinking of community as a program. You realize it's part of the product, and it's probably the most important part. So, Rick, what say you to that?
I mean, can you stop throwing me in the deep end in this episode? My goodness.
I mean, I just wanted your perspective.
My perspective is very simple. It's powerful. It's
but
so powerful.
I don't think you knew. I don't think, because we do joke, and I am going to throw them under the bus because I don't think the girls know this.
She always
but
does.
when
she always does. I'm used to
when
it.
I joined
It's my new home.
when I joined Wakelet, our audience knows this because I've talked about it, but Rick was my very first meeting. So the day I started at Wakelet it was a British holiday, right? But the next day, my boss was like, hey, like Emily, VP of marketing, was like, hey, get to know everybody, make a meeting with everybody, see how you can help them or whatever. So Rick was actually my very first meeting on my very first day. And I'm like, so how can I help you? He was like,
this isn't going to look good for me.
It's not going to look good, but it's going to be funny. He was like, just keep giving me feedback. I've been dealing with all of your bug issues for like years now. And so you just keep doing that. And then a couple of months later, we had a conversation and he was like, listen, Tisha, I really didn't know the extent of your experience. I really just thought, like, I didn't know you had a coding background and I didn't know you knew how to troubleshoot technology to the level that you did. And I joke with him. I'm like, so I'm not just a standard teacher, right? So that is something that we say with each other playfully. But I think in the bigger scope of that, I don't think even Rick realized the power of teacher voices coming together, using a tool, sharing what they're learning at all the parties you guys said, the power that it has for the people building it even, right? So I want you to talk a little bit about that. And any of you can speak to that. You worked with all of your team members at Flipgrid. What did you find? What really spoke to you about the people on, behind the scenes that were working on improving and doing the features? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, can I just shout out the dynamic team of folks who built Flipgrid from the ground up, the students that started at the university with Dr. Charlie Miller, the earliest folks who were the first, the second, the third ones. I think of Mr. Nate Edwards. I think of Liz Maddie. I think of just so many folks who were with Charlie from the beginning. And then the folks that were added who cared so deeply about building something. But I think because it started at the university, the heart of that teacher-student connection, it was so foundational to the product because it literally transformed the ability for people to share their voice, but foster connection. Yeah. And I'm going to say that fancy word we all love so much and have shared so much over the asynchronous connections, right? I said the A word, like, y'all, it changed the game. But I want to, the only thing I want to say besides this is we have the privilege of being a bridge from the community to the product. Yes. and serving as that bridge to amplify educator voice, to amplify what was working or what could have been improved or what impact came from the product being used, how students were finding their voice. There are countless moments we all carry, and this is where I have my tissue ready. Stories that educators would come up to us on the conference floor and say, oh my God, my student, perhaps XYZ. And those XYZ stories are, my student didn't have a spoken language. My student was a selective mute. My student chose to communicate through sign language, or they never spoke up in class and they found their voice, or they tried it, or they signed on Flipgrid. These beautifully moving stories of people sharing their authentic self on this platform. And we would just cry. We just cried our way through 6 years of incredible moments that were the human story and the human connection. So I'm going to keep that brief because, man, I'm already in my feels about all of it. Jess, Jornea, jump in. I'm going to dab my eyes with this tissue
That's
right
such
now.
a great, like, we cried our way through 6 years of incredible moments. Like, that was perfect in a nutshell. But, you know, I think about, so pre-COVID, Jornea and I were the only remote employees for Flipgrid. And so once a month, the three of us would fly to Minneapolis and work out of the office for a week. And when we would get there, we'd be like, hey, everyone, we have so many stories to share with you. And it was just like unloading on everyone with like all the glitter and rainbows of like, here's all of the things that have happened. Here's who we've, like, as Anne was talking, like all of these stories we just couldn't wait to share. And I think that was a really special thing because the people who are sitting there behind the scenes got to like hear it firsthand, you know?
And
And
Jess,
then
I have to jump in and say, they worked on the quiet side,
Right,
and we
yeah,
did it
yeah.
the loud side
we
every
literally
time.
got
Yes.
2%.
Rick
I
is
can
laughing. Rick knows because I would go to the office at
Yeah.
Wakelet and it would the quiet side, I would sit on the quiet side. So I would just like nestle myself into the quiet side.
We weren't allowed on the quiet side. No. But you know, all of the people that worked behind the product were also super active on social. And I think that made a big difference too, because then it was like, you know, we would look at like Mixtape Marty, Grid Pal George, right? Like we would have all of these things
Yes.
and people would know like, oh, I have an issue with this specific thing. I know which person on the team I should at when I'm writing a problem, and they're going to be there. And then also when they would be able to come to events too, like that was super special for us because we got to see all of the amazing things. We got to cry with people on the conference floor all the time. But then whenever they were able to, I think was really special. But it's that I think Anne hit the nail on the head there of like everyone had that teacher-student connection and just realizing the importance of the relationships and things. So every single person that worked on the tool wanted to hear those stories, wanted to experience it. So they were being as active as they could to and listening and truly caring. And it is like when you would put in a ticket, you were talking to the specific person who
I remember that was one of the things that really stood out to me, like being in Minneapolis or being at any of the Flipgrid lives. Like Liz, Maddie, and I would actually find ourselves, because despite what people believe, I'm really an introvert. So during some of those bigger parties, I would be standing up against the wall observing, and she would be there too. So we would like migrate to each other. But you know, just being able to talk to someone who, that is really part of why and we'll talk more about this because we have another episode coming up soon, a secret episode that I can't share about, but I'm going to talk more about. That's really where I learned, oh, I'm fascinated with how they make this product, fascinated with that side of things. And I didn't anticipate that. And I do believe it was the conversations I was having with the Flipgrid team. And they were open and willing to ask questions, and sharing and taking feedback and really listening to us. I think it was so major for me professionally to be part of that culture. Jornea, you're up.
So I'm gonna just talk, I guess, some through lines here. Because one, every person that had the opportunity to work at Flipgrid just wasn't working. They were living out their passions and their purpose. There's a Japanese model that really speaks to when you can really kind of blend in your purpose, your passion, your profession, in life, you just have this different sense of, I'm going to use the word becoming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So not only did Flipgrid provide that sense of belonging, not only for the community, but for people who worked at Flipgrid, but it also was a sense of becoming because we're always evolving and changing and growing. And the only way we can do that is if we can connect, learn, empathize with other people. Like I believe I am not here on this earth just for me.
Right.
I am here on this earth for other people, right?
Yep.
So I have a duty and a responsibility to live out the gifts that I've been given to help someone else along the way, right?
Mhm.
So thinking about our beautiful designers and thinking about the joy of what that design, whether that's the product design or if you remember, there was like all these little characters with Flipgrid, there was lots of pride and passion that went into the creation of everything. And I think the beautiful part about that was you had that sense not only of like self acceptance, but your team recognized the gifts that you had and fostered those things, right?
Mhm.
So, I say all that to say the team at Flipgrid was like top notch, but it also comes from having incredible leaders.
Mhm.
When you have leaders on a team that show that they care, not just about what you're doing, but about your family. Like,
Yes.
I remember my first time, not even working at Flipgrid. At this time, I was up there doing the webinar. And they made time and space to hear my story,
Mhm.
right? To
Mhm.
hear how my community had been impacted by natural disasters and how that
Mhm.
impacts me as a mother.
Yeah.
They've me gone with me through some difficult times in my life.
Mhm.
During my time at Flipgrid, I became divorced, and a single mom
Right.
at that moment in time. And they saw that and they were there for me and they still, honored my time and space, but still allowed me to also lead and lead my team in a way
Yeah.
that I felt right to lead my team.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
would say I'm the non-traditional leader.
Mhm.
We started every meeting and conversation about them and
Yep.
what positive things were happening in their lives outside of work. And
Yeah.
what did that do? It brought us closer and closer together. Every single person who sat on the community team, one way or another, we're still in conversation with
Mhm.
each other, whether it's on social, text messages, the webinars, seeing each other at conferences. We truly have a space for each other in our hearts, and that won't ever change because it's always been authentic. So I will say, struggled a little bit after leaving Microsoft after the deprecation bye-bye of Flip, and searching for the next role because
Mhm.
one, I know myself and I am not going to, how would I say this? Put away the things that I value for a job, right? And so there's a lot of companies that's trying to so-called replicate this,
Yes.
but they are not um welcoming people in general to the community. They're being selective. And to me, that's not right or fair,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, that was the beauty of Flipgrid. It didn't matter where you were in the world. Come on, we love
Yep.
you. We want to hear from you. And what did that do? That empowered so many educators to do things they never even thought about
Yes.
doing. Educators who are now authors, educators who are now
Yep.
comfortable presenting at conferences, educators who are now working at other ed tech companies. So
Yes.
the legacy will always continue
Yes.
because that spark was ignited in that person. And when you feel that spark ignited in an authentic way, it is only right for you to pass it on to the next
Yeah.
person.
I was going to
So,
say, absolutely. You guys created a ripple effect, and you're absolutely right. The leadership, right? I always talk about starts at the top. Did lots of leadership work with my students, but then Rick and I have written this book for ISTE. So when you say authors, like I go back, Manny and I talk a lot about and cry a lot about. It really blossomed there for so many of us. And I think it was, like you said, it was open to everybody and we were moving together. So I still see us. I don't know if you guys feel that, but I still feel like even though we're all in different places, we are still moving through life together. We're still friends, like you said, on Facebook. We're still messaging each other. We have calls with each other. Like I'm on Jess and Manny have me on Marco Polo, which is not like, but I go there for Manny and Jess because I love them. Ann and I, we do voice text, right? Like I'm always on Facebook reading Jornea, your posts. I'm like, yes. Like I may just respond yes, but it's because I'm like, we're still aligned in our thinking no matter how old we are. And I think that is really what it's about. It really was a domino effect. And because it was the gold standard, and Rick and I talked about this yesterday as we were planning, he said, at Wakelet, we were like, okay, they figured it out. How do we replicate it where we are? How do we create the community that they've built? What are they doing internally? What is the expectation of those team members? What's the expectations of the leaders, right? And I just think it is fantastic and fascinating to see how all those little seeds have created these incredible blossoms into the world. All of those community members, all of those ambassadors, I'm still friends with every single one of them, right? We're all still supporting each other no matter what we're doing.
I
and
think
I
we
don't
all
know if
still
Jen
have
and
our
Jess
little
remember
sign.
this.
I was gonna say, I think we all still have our little signed card from Joey. And
Oh,
Joey and
yes,
Charlie.
I do.
Welcome to being a Flipgrid ambassador. I know right where mine is. It's upstairs on a bookshelf.
Yes.
Like those connections remain. And I have a joke with some of my friends. Jornea, I know I jumped in real fast, so get ready to come in.
Welcome
and say
to the
what you're-
ADHD show where we talk over each other, but we all know what we're saying.
Yep.
But like I feel like some of the friends I have in California in my community, like we talk about being the aunties and uncles and the grandmas and grandpas now of this community of
Yes.
educators. And it's this beautiful, wait. I mean, I'm pushing the next big decade change here. Toss, hair toss, right? Like we have been in this for a long time. I have been working in community for 8+ years now. Like we see new folks coming in, growing up, looking for their space, seeking that connection. And all of us know how good it is to be a quote connected educator because we had that transformational experience where I quote Jornea all the time, broaden hearts and minds. Like that was something that we had the privilege of doing along the mission of helping people find their voice, share their voice, but also respect the diverse voices of others. Like those were things you could stand for. And we did stand for, and we lived out in our actions. I see you. I honor you. I respect you. I learn from you, even if my perspective is different from you.
Yes.
That was what community was.
Yes.
And it changed us as people, like forever changed for the better. So, Jornea, go jump in because I'm about to start crying again.
This is the perfect tee up though, because I was gonna ask. I know y'all remember all the beautiful student voice tours that we took, the Flipgrid bus tours, and shout out to George Malukaran and Adam Short.
Yes.
Because behind the scenes, they created like the most incredible decks that we ever used. And so one thing I always appreciated and remembered is that when we talked about, and I know Tisha, your question was about product and really having community at the heart of product, we made sure not only in our words, but in our actions, right? So in these student voice tours and Flipgrid bus tours, we would tell students, your voice matters. Your voice is important. Your voice will change the world. As Ann just mentioned, that, not only to share your voice, but to respect the diverse voices of others. And then, finally, when we talk about that product, cycle, community voice was at every single piece of that, even to the point where there were some kind of war sometime about who said what first in this exchange within community.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
the whole point of it is that we were always listening. So whether that was listening in person, listening on social, and then talking about what does this actually mean and what can this translate to into product? And once it's in product, how do we then go back and amplify our community member who shared that
Yes.
idea that made the product better? So even like for our students, we made sure to let them know that they have a voice when they're utilizing these tools, whether it was Flipgrid or a tool that they're using today. Those tools are not going to be anything without the community that's using it. So
Absolutely.
if there's an opportunity to expand access for someone else to be able to use the tool, to make the tool, I would say, like more simplified for an entry point for people, because I think a lot of people shy away from tech
Yes.
if there's not a easy entry point and a quick validation into what this tool is going to do, for me. So, we had that megaphone. The community members, the students, they were our megaphone. And, I'm going to just say a big thank you, because it not only made that product what it is, but so many other EdTech companies now are at least trying to get to the point where educators are their megaphones. So I'm going to say to the EdTech companies, or if you work for an EdTech company right now and you're listening to this, don't just talk about it, be it.
Be about
You
it.
know,
Mhm.
people can see through what's real and what's not. And so if you put out a form and you never follow up with your community members, or if you have a call and they stay silent throughout the entire call and you're never talking or you're never going to see them in their classrooms, then what's the point? Really, like, what's the point? Like, do you really care about them, or do you care about like next quarter's like goals, right? Like the
Yep.
quarter's goals are going to come if you take care of the most important things first, which is people. You said it, Tish, people, pedagogy, product, right?
Absolutely.
So that is just like my 2 cents, putting it out
That's a
there.
perfect 2
But that's how
cents.
magic is. If you want to know, that's
It
that.
is. It is.
But
I
it
want to
comes
go
in
back
cycles too,
a little
right?
bit to what Ann said, because you said that we've all, and Manny and I talked about this, but we've sort of, Lydia also, I think we all felt it, like, we aren't staying out as late as we used to at conferences, and there's the younger groups coming up. And I do
Excuse me,
want to
Tish. I'm
I
sorry. I'm
know.
jumping in. I'm jumping in here. How
Why?
long? How late were we up for ISTE last year? The first
I
night, knowing that
know.
you'd driven for 7
I
hours.
know I say that, but
What was it? 3 in the morning at
I give
Whataburger?
myself
I mean, come
I give
on.
myself one night now, but I really want to shout out some of the newbies out there, because Manny and I have talked about this a lot, and this has happened to me. I don't really speak about it often. I do want to share this. So I'm shouting out Alana at Wayground, because her and Kyle invited me this last week to their Wayground Brisk EdTech meetup, right? And she and I had a really incredible conversation, and I did feel like the mentor teacher again, right? And when I arrived, the ladies at the front were like, "We don't have your name." And I said, "Well, Kyle and Alana have invited me." And she just happened to be standing there, and she was like, "Ladies, let her through. She's the best in the business." And Manny and I have talked about this a lot, because we do get a lot of people saying that about us, and it is so, like, it just stops me, because I'm like, like, no, like don't give me all the credit, right? It has been a collective effort of all of us. And I have been mentoring some of the people like Alana, and I just want to shout them out because they're the ones learning the ropes now, right? And we're sharing what we've learned. And it is it feels crazy, like sort of passing the torch, if you will. But I want everybody listening, and I want to say this again before we head into our fun part of the show, which all of this has been fun, but they don't know the questions I'm about to ask them. I just want to say, if you have a brand new teacher, a new teacher, even a teacher, a veteran teacher, share this episode with them. The things that these ladies have shared with you are why people like Manny and I are doing what we do. And you guys started it off. And I think so many, I know I speak for the entire community of educators that you have empowered and influenced. We owe so much to each of you. We owe so much to the energy and the emotion and the empathy and the time that you put in to empowering all of us. And I just want to speak for everybody and say thank you, thank you, thank you to each of you. I know.
Before you get into juice
before
box,
we all
though,
start
Tish,
crying.
yeah, really. before we get all into that, I do want to just kind of take a little bit of a step back. So Juicebox Confession is going to get delayed by about 5 more minutes. If I can get,
Okay.
actually, I do have one question as well, so it's probably going to be longer. So I apologize, Tish. I know you've got your schedule.
It's okay.
No, there's a couple of things I want to go back to. First off, Jornea, you mentioned about the leadership team being caring, actually looking after, taking an interest in everything that you do. And I think that's something that I've recognized where I am now, is having that care from leadership, because that trickles down into everything else that we do. And I think from what they were providing for you allowed you to continue to support in everything that you were doing as well, for the community, for the people. And that, to me, within any company is vital. I've seen it too many times where where people are struggling, or we're all just trying to do our own thing and that's it. We don't really look out and see and actually speak to the people next to us and say, how are you doing? Is there anything we can help with? Not just from a work side, but from a personal side. And to hear that from what was going on at Flipgrid is incredible to hear. It's rare, but is outstanding and is a true representation of what should be going on internally, because it's then going to radiate out automatically every single time. You also mentioned the helping others. Why you're on this earth is not just for me, it's about helping others. It's one thing that I always stand by. I think it was Will Smith that said it. If I'm not making someone else's life or helping someone else, I'm wasting my life. I don't go to the whole wasting my life kind of approach, but I definitely look at, I want to help other people, because for me, I'm dyslexic, was diagnosed when I was 8 years old, back in the 90s. Not a lot of information was really around back then. And I always felt like the outsider. I wasn't able to achieve much and stuff. And from my experience at school, and Tish knows this, that it wasn't the best, wasn't the greatest. My secondary school didn't even know I was dyslexic until 2 months before my main exams, which was not fun. Going a little bit deep here. I'm going to bring it up a little bit, don't worry. But because of that, and when I went to TCA 2022, which was my very first conference, and seeing everything that's going on, not just at Wakeland, not just at Flipgrid, but every single company that was there trying to help the next generations, you guys were leading the way. As Tish said, you were the gold standard. I looked up to everything that Flipgrid was doing and was thinking, that is what we should be at, that kind of level, that kind of commitment for the people. Because I said this, and Tisha knows about this, I said to the team, we're all here trying to do the same thing. Let's do this all together, which is why I tried to advocate that we should have partnerships. And again, when we had Flipgrid embedded in Wakelet, we'd had Adobe, Canva, all these things. We should be partnering as much as we can, mixers, everything, because we're all going for the same thing, which is making the education space easier for the educators, better for the learners so that they can grow on and do even more things than what we did in what we had. And lastly, and you mentioned about accessibility. You mentioned about how users were using it for, you had a student that was mute. And I think Tish knows, I said this very recently, wasn't it? That every single company should use accessibility first before anything else, because it doesn't matter what your product is. I used the example of a ramp. If you've got a step that you need to go up to, intentional design is about building something that accommodates for everybody, not just what you think the majority is. So build a ramp. Everybody can go up a ramp, but not everybody can go up a step. And I think everything that you guys were doing at Flipgrid with the product, making it simple, making it accessible, making the community feel inclusive for absolutely everybody, was so impressive, so amazing. So that just leads on to my last question. Before we go into Juicebox Confessionals, we can have some fun. Obviously, we've said that the next generation of teachers are coming in. We've got a lot of veteran teachers, which is great, but there's a lot of new educators coming into the space, a lot of new learners coming into the space. What is something that you would recommend to all those new educators coming in to look for when it comes to joining a community or even supporting community, whether it's just locally or more state, national, worldwide? What would you give it as advice for them?
I'll go. I'd say to not be afraid to take risks and to do it scared, right? And put yourself out there. And I think of even when I first started going to tech conferences and the amount of times I would end up in a space where I'm like, how did I get here? I don't know if I'm supposed to be at this.
That's awesome. Yes.
And it was like random, like, I don't think I'm supposed to be at this intimate dinner with the founders of Kahoot, but somehow I found a ticket on Eventbrite and I just got it. And now there's 6 of us and this is strange. But like just doing it and going and showing up, and not being afraid to have conversations and like look silly and whatever has led to the best community, and we all found our people, right? And it's just like, I feel like being a teacher can be so isolating,
Mm.
especially when you feel like you have a passion for something and you're the only one at your school that's talking about something in some type of way, right? And but just not being afraid to put yourself out there. Like, look at how many of us, even just, I know that social looks different these days, but that just would talk on Twitter about these things because, like, okay, no one at my school wants to hear it, so I'm going to
Yeah.
shout it into the ether. And then all of a sudden, all of these people were like, oh, me too. Oh, me too. Oh, me too. And that, community just kind of grew from there.
I would say I want to bounce off of that because I think and I've said this a lot, and when I think it needs to be said, and Manny and I talk about this often, but I have just said to people, like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to message me. Like, if you want to know something and you want me to give you advice on something, and there have been people who have taken me up on it, and then there have been other people who have been a little bit, they're like, no, we can't ask you that. Like, find a person. This is the best advice. And I want to say Brian Romero Smith probably was the one. He gave me a lot of great advice, and it was because of Flipgrid. That's how I met him. And he said 2 things to me. He said, find the people who are doing what you're doing and talk to them. Be around them, learn from them, be friends with them, see what they're doing so that you can, who you are around is who you're going to become. And the second thing he told me, and this was early Flipgrid days, he said something, he said, find your niche. What is the thing that you're really passionate about? What is the thing that you could talk about with anybody all the time that people get tired of you talking about? Find people who have that in common with you. And for me, it was student leadership. It was really building entrepreneurship skills in my classroom so that my students could go out and be amazing leaders into the world, right? And so I think those are the 2 things that I would give advice to new teachers. find someone who's doing it and don't be afraid. Like Jess said, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, all of us, I always say, I told Alana the other day, I was like, anything you ask me or anything you are experiencing, it's probably not new to me. I've gone through a lot of experiences over the years, and that transition from like educator to coach to then working in the EdTech space. It's an interesting, like to Jornea's point, it's an interesting transition. And I always say, and I'm not afraid to say this to people now, I am born from the Flipgrid Wakelet DNA. That is in my blood. And so when I approach anything, it doesn't matter what it is. I am approaching it with that lens, right? So Anne, Jornea, what advice do you guys have?
Well, I'll just jump in too and say, for me, it's like find a way to get connected. And I think that's super simple in concept, but it's so much more nuanced because it's a conversation outside of your immediate space, outside of your classroom, off of your campus, outside of your district. Go to the local events, find the person across town who's doing something. I love what you just said about like talk to the people who are passionate about the things you're passionate about. And I see that still working in community. It's just finding a way to get connected because it broadens hearts and minds. And we're in this. I know I left the classroom because I knew I could help more students by helping more teachers.
Yeah.
And so the conversations that we have with each other, it's a way that we can continue to empower each other, inspire each other, encourage each other, challenge each other, support each other. Because let's face it, it is not easy being an educator.
Nope.
It is not. And so anything we can do to provide, whether it's professional learning support or encouragement, I see you, I value you, I respect you, get connected, because there are so many people out there still looking for a connection that changes everything. So it's better together, y'all, always.
I love this. Well, I have put a link in the chat. I know at least one of you is viewing it. Now these are just pictures that I have way more, so I'll probably add more to this after we record, and we'll put this in the show notes. These are just the pictures that I found, and I wanted you guys to just flip through the pictures, and when you get to the very end, you'll find two pictures. And I want to give you a moment to shout out anybody. Like, this is the shout out moment for Flipgrid community, anybody who was a part of building this incredible group of educators. So just to give the audience who's listening context, a lot of these pictures are my own personal pictures from different Flipgrid live events with educators that I have now been friends with for so long. I think we were talking like some of them decades now. And like Claudio and I go all the way back to before. And then I actually have a slide here with all of my Flipgrid t-shirts, which I think I took last year or the year before. And I know we're all wearing a different version. So I want us to take a moment. Jornea is actually wearing, show them your sparkly Flipgrid t-shirt, Jornea. And also this comment is for Manny. Ed Pezzle Manny, she was wearing a sparkly skirt with that shirt.
It was a green. It was just a green shirt, and
It was
with my sparkle Flipgrid.
Yes, your sparkles. And then there's a photo of Jess and Anne and George and Adam in my classroom, which again was so impactful, not just for me and my students. I dug up a picture of Manny. This was at his house. He did a whole party. And that's the thing. When we have parties, we're still inviting each other to these parties, right? And then a couple of presentations that I did. And then there's that photo of you guys. I think this is Flipgrid 2019. Is that one 2019? Flipgrid is a story 2018.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, 2019. Sorry.
Is it?
I went to
Yeah,
a
this is the
roundtable.
one that Rick spoke of earlier with the whole team there. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, there's a photo of me here with a quote that I said at one point, and this is how you know the team was listening, but they used it as part of their booth setup, right? And I know Wakelet did that a couple of times. To see your face and your name on something that the company is displaying at a conference is like, that's a moment of empowerment, because it means not only were you listening to what I was saying, but now you also want to share that with the world, right? Like, that's for some of us, especially neurodivergents like me, that's a big deal. So I still have that photo. And then I found this, and this one's, I know, I know my name is misspelled, right? It's an article that somebody posted. Once I was like, you know what? I need all these Flipgrid prompts. So I'm just going to put these in Adobe Spark. I did use Adobe Spark for this, and I didn't expect everybody to use that. It showed up in somebody's article with my name misspelled, but it's fine. I mean, it's fine. And then if you keep going, I want you guys now to look at slide 11 and 12. And I want you to take a moment to just shout out some of those names that I don't want to leave anybody out. So Jornea, I'm going to let you go first, and we'll just do that. Then Jess and Ann.
I gotta give a big shout out to Jadisa Jalba,
Yes.
because she was one educator that, and this is gonna be my advice too. All right, just put out your ideas. I mean, this world is so beautiful now that we can learn from anybody, any place, anytime, with any platform now. And so we saw things that she was doing in her classroom and how she started using Flipgrid with her students. And it was a pleasure to have her on the community team. We learned and we grew so much from her. We also really like doubled down too on culture, thinking about the role culture plays in everything that we do. So she is an incredible entrepreneur and facilitator of learning. So check out Mackenzie's Adventures. It's been amazing to just watch her journey, and I'm so thankful that we were all a part of that.
We may or may not have invited her to do a podcast episode already. Yes. Anybody else? Jess, who do you want to shout out that we've maybe
as I'm
missed?
looking at this picture, I'm getting like obviously really emotional, of course. But what's standing out to me is thinking about all of these people across the world. I'm looking at Christine McKee, and I'm looking at Chris in Scotland. I'm looking at Monica Joshi, and I'm looking at Vincent in Spain. And I'm thinking of these moments where how many of these people I've gotten to hug in real life. And I'm thinking about when Jed came to LA from the Philippines, and I flew out there, and Ann and I went and met him where he was. And it was just like this moment of our internet friends, our internet family meeting in real life, and how many of these people have been so impactful in my life. And that we, my online friends, and now I know their families, and I have been to their weddings and all of these things. And it is just the power of connection, of community. And so I'm just like overwhelmed looking at this picture.
Absolutely.
It's been a wild ride.
Oh my gosh. And I'm like sitting in my feels looking at this. You see the tear falling out of my eye. And I mean, Yuritsa comes to mind first as still just a dear and treasured friend. I know, Jess, you said her name earlier when we're talking about people on the team, and Jornea shouting out the work that she's doing, but talking about like culturally responsive and sustaining education and having the Ask Yuritsa series. So from a community member to our team member for a season. But y'all, I was texting with Christine McKee last week. I saw the Merrills in Florida and Lucretia Anton the week before. Dr. Ramesh Langani and I still text each other. Like, oh my God.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee. I mean, all of these folks, but I literally, like, I always live with a Post-it note just off screen. So like, I also just want to say thank you to the moment of like the entire world, because we literally use the stat 190 plus countries and regions around the world. Somebody somewhere was using Flipgrid, literally the entire world. So people still
Nam and Vietnam had everybody using
Oh my
Flipgrid.
gosh, right? People still come up to me at conferences and events and say, can I can I talk about it?
Yeah.
And I say, yes, yes, we will always be thankful for the season. We will always be thankful for what Flipgrid provided people. We will always be thankful for the fact that this platform helped people stay connected during a global pandemic. I will always talk with love about this platform.
Yeah.
But from Charlie and Joey to Adam to George, Jornea, Jess, Felly, Yaritza, Elizabeth, Scott, Andy. Oh my God, how lucky were we?
I say that all the time. How lucky was I? How lucky was I that I got the opportunity to be part of that OG group, right? Now we're the old OG group, but those friendships, the EdTech is going to change. We know that the companies are going to change, but what will never change is the connection, the community, the friendships. That's never changing. And I agree with you, Anne. We're going to end it on that. Now I'm going to make you guys laugh a little bit because we did say, Jornea and I promise people are going to laugh and cry. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a quick fire because Rick knows that I love doing this Juicebox Confessional. What I love doing really is giving you guys a platform. And the whole reason of our Play Ed3 podcast is really to give people a platform to be able to share their story. And we wanted you guys to do that. But we also want to know some fun things about you that probably nobody knows. So I'm going to start off with this one. And you can't think about it too long. Okay. So that it's a quick fire for a reason. And I say that because I'm talking to myself too. So, okay. You can only go to one more concert the rest of your life. And you can only pick. I knew this would be hard for Jornea. I thought of you. I know. And Jornea, here's the second part of that. You can only choose an 80s or 90s group. Okay, so one concert left for the rest of your life, and it has to be someone from the 80s or 90s. Jornea, who were you going to see?
I already did it. The Brandy and Monica Boy Is Mine tour brought me back to a high schooler. I've lived it.
Yes. Jess, what about you?
Can I say Michael Jackson?
Absolutely. You can say Michael Jackson.
Nice.
Anne?
I mean, I'm going to say you too, because it was like a high school thing and a 40-something thing. So for the rest of time, I'll have that on repeat.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So when you were a kid and you were doing long road trips, or it could be airplane rides, what was the one item that you would always take with you, could not leave home without it?
My Game Boy.
I was waiting for Game Boy to come up.
I know. Jornea?
I was going between like the Game Boy or the Discman.
The disc, yes.
My Discman with me.
Yes. Anne, what about you?
Well, Jornea said Discman. I was going to say Walkman. I'm a few years older than
I think I was taking both of them with me because I wanted the choice, right?
cassette tapes, yo.
Okay, this is going to be really like kind of what kind of student were you in class? So these are just going to be really quick questions. So, blue or black pen? Which one did you prefer?
Oh,
Blue.
Black.
Okay, I was a blue. Jornea, did you say blue? I think
was blue.
Jornea and I are really
Probably
similar in our
purple, but-
answers. Okay, yeah, I knew somebody was going to be like, I don't want any of those. That's what
I had all the colored gel ones, but whatever.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
have to make a choice.
Mechanical or regular pencil? Which did you prefer?
Mechanical.
Regular mechanical's too squeaky.
Mechanical.
I would get frustrated with the mechanical because I'd be writing and then it'd run out of the stuff and I'd have to find my little lead and I didn't know where it was. It was a whole mess, right?
You need a thicker lead. This is 1.3 millimeter in my hand right now. You need a thick lead on that.
5.7.
Okay. Would you sit in the front of class or towards the back of class?
Front.
Front?
All the way in the back, baby.
I knew it. Anne, what about you?
I needed to check.
I'm a front row friend.
I think Jess and I would have been back row people. We would have probably not been able to sit
now
together.
because I know that I have to be in order to
take in the info. Absolutely. Would you rather do independent work or group work?
Ooh, it depends. I love a group, but sometimes like I gotta be in a zone because I am all over the place sometimes. So a little bit of independent, but
Yes.
then the group.
Yes. Yes. And do you have a preference?
Yeah,
I feel like
same.
you all are kind of like that, right? Like, yeah. Would you pack your lunch to go to school, or would you buy lunch from the cafeteria? Which did you prefer?
I always bought lunch at the
Me too.
cafeteria.
Yeah.
As a kid in elementary school, buying lunch from school was the best.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know what's
Yeah.
interesting? I had the opposite experience. My mom made me buy lunch every day, and I was like, I just want to be like the other kids. Can't you
Mhm.
just make me some sandwiches with a strawberry shortcake, 10 lunchbox? And she was like, no. I was always jealous of those kids. Okay, now we're gonna get into some funny ones. Now, if you could press pause like an 80s VHS during one moment in your life, when would it be and why?
Um,
That's a tough one. Even I'm trying to think of.
I know the one in the context of this conversation. I know
Okay.
you're asking broader,
It's okay.
but we talk all the time about like Flipgrid 2019 and how amazing that year was, and how like almost in like a I wish I would have known how good that year was when it was happening kind of thing, you know? But
Yeah.
that to me was like that was my perfect year.
Yeah. And Jornea, it can be in context of this conversation if you want it to be.
Wow. My gosh, Jornea's like, yeah, I see her thinking, I need think time on
Yeah,
this.
like to me, like moments are so like interconnected
Mhm.
that like okay, like one moment.
That's why I cheated.
As it relates as it relates to like what we're talking about right now.
It can be, absolutely. Or it could be your concert that you went to.
Oh yeah, when Usher held my hand for a whole song.
yeah.
Yeah, let me press pause on that. That was an awesome moment. But, I will say, that moment you mentioned a little earlier with Ann, Jess, and I on that stage in Minneapolis
Yeah.
was a beautiful moment. I know you said quick, but if y'all remember, there was a birthday party for
Yeah.
me at our
Yep.
boss's house, like on the lake before we had
Yep.
this incredible community event. And I think at that moment, when I had the pleasure of announcing both Ann and Jess joining the team, I knew things would forever change. And it was about educators, being like the only educator is like it's a blessing, but it's just kind of like you're still kind of in your own world. And at that point, when I knew we were going to grow our team with more educators, like that was just a moment of pure joy for me, because I knew the whole world was going to be shifted, at that moment. So yeah, if I could press pause, it would be on that. I have that image in my head right now, and just looking at the sea of educators smiling, knowing that they were proud that Flipgrid continued that legacy of making sure educators are in the forefront of every decision. So
Absolutely. Ann?
And I'm going to go with a little bit of, I think it's, I don't know, like a sentimental end. Maybe the last time we were all together as teammates and just getting to like pause and reflect. And that's so cool because the friendships continue, the legacy of the work continues. But like as teammates, getting to just pause.
Yeah. I think pause is a really, really great word for everyone right now. Pausing and remembering those great relationships, connections that we have, right? And that's really what it's about. We need more of that. We need more of that in the world. I think people are hungry for that. I think they are hungry for it more now than ever. And so again, I just want to do a call to action for anybody listening. Share this podcast episode. If you are listening and you don't have a PLN, I know all of us would answer the DM. We're going to put every one of the girls' social medias in our show notes. And so you can reach out to any of us. We will support you. We will connect you to people who are doing what you're doing. And where I want to kind of lead into this, because we said we would talk about, I want you guys to tell us, where can everybody find you now? What are you up to now? What work are you working on? What projects are you working on that excite you? Tell us that before we have to say goodbye, which is not permanent, because we're all going to talk after this anyway. But Jornea, tell us what you're up to. Tell us where everybody can find you. And what is something that you're working on that you're really proud of?
Oh, okay. Yes. So currently, I am a program manager with Milestone Technologies in support of Google for Education on the Global Impact team. So I'm working on a lot of Gemini efforts right now, especially their certifications. So if you're Google School, there's some great resources readily available to support you. On the other side, I am also like dipping my toe or maybe diving in really soon into being an entrepreneur. It's something that has, been circling around me for some time now after the bye-bye to Flip. And so I am working on a actual cocktail book for educators called Schools Out, that kind of meets pedagogy with a little fun with cocktails. Yeah, and then just my own consulting, advising, and coaching business. So, and that is called Savvy Creations. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
That's amazing. That sounds fun. And I'll connect with you after this, because I want to make sure there's a specific Texas cocktail that you share in your
Ooh,
book,
yeah.
maybe. So we'll talk about that. Jess, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I actually work for a nonprofit that teaches video game design specifically to underrepresented communities. That's called Endless Access, and it's something that I'm so proud to be a part of. And Jornea was talking earlier about like this beautiful thing about Flipgrid was that it was for everyone. And so one of our main learning principles for this organization that I work for now is that everyone belongs. And whenever I was interviewing, they put up the learning principles and said, pick which one is the most, like which one stands out to you. And of course I was like, they're all amazing, but that was the one, right? And it just really spoke to me. So I have the absolute privilege of, I'm called partner success, which is the fancy term. But what that means is I get to work with this global audience. I get to travel all over the world talking about ways to bring technology to students in a really fun and impactful way. And so we actually have a video game that's called Threadbare, that is an open source game that as learners are learning how to code and talk through storytelling and everything, they're actually helping to build the video game that they're playing. And so it's really cool to see this incredible global collaboration, and just
It's
I'm really proud to
amazing.
be a part of it.
Absolutely. Amazing. Okay, Ann Cosma, you're up.
Yeah, so I am still working in support of education communities. I'm working at Adobe, and proud to say I work with Charlie and Joey still. They're both at Adobe, and we are working to empower creativity for everyone, and really looking at what creative thinking and sharing your learning with these empowering creative tools that Adobe provides the world looks like for students. And so student communities, educator communities, I still get to be a champion for people who are changing the game for learners everywhere every day, and I feel so honored to get to continue that at another tool and another company that I have loved and used for a long time. So I feel incredibly fortunate. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
I think you
I'm
were kind
just
of beautiful, and that whenever you said you kind of put off learning about Flipgrid, it's because you were so focused on Adobe Spark. And then like this,
yes.
isn't that fascinating the way that things.
It's a really kind of
Mhm.
crazy full circle moment. So after, the heartache of the end of one chapter, we all know there's like a beginning and a beautiful beginning that happens when you turn the page. So yeah, it's an honor and a privilege. And because so much of the foundational work we learned from leaders like Joey Tarleson and Dr. Charlie Miller in supportive community to get to continue to do that at Adobe. I pinch myself every day.
You guys are incredible. You are doing
It's amazing.
incredible work. And I just, again, want to thank you so much for your time, for joining Rick and I, for sharing your story, the Flipgrid story, hashtag Flipgrid fever, hashtag what was the other one? I'm trying to think. There's one on this Flipgrid Friday. Yeah, there's so many hashtags that were started, and I just want to say thank you all for allowing so many of us to be part of that community and feeling like we belong, and just keep doing the great work. I love you guys. I love each of you. You are my friends, and I will want to amplify your stories and amplify your work every single day. So thank you again. Rick, what do you have? Do you have any last words for them?
I knew from the moment that Tish got this organized that this was going to be an incredible episode, and that I've obviously not been in the education sector as long as everyone here, but even in the short time, I can see the impact that you've all had and continue to do and spread the energy that you provide to everybody else. You have all been huge impacts. And as well, for myself, seeing what you've done has really inspired me to go out and do more, which is why we have things like the podcast. It's why we went and wrote the book and stuff like that, is because of the three of you being such an inspiration to do more. So I'm going to leave it there before I start crying. But as Tish mentioned, you can go check them out on socials, follow them, see what they're up to. They're all in the descriptions. If you've enjoyed the video and the podcast, please give it a thumbs up, follow, subscribe if you're not already. And until next week, we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.